good, incomes are better, there's less likely for people to be involved with crime. There's also the downstream effects, like Trudy said, about mental health issues and people that are vulnerable. If we take away local services, their vulnerability will increase. Youth service provision has gone. That is opening up young people to be having time on their hands, probably not so much money, may well get lured into crime. The simple investment in our local communities will pay back tenfold in improved communities. We need to just stop thinking about cuts and thinking about how we build our communities back up again into stronger, more resilient places.
Some years ago, in this area, the police decided, for reasons of efficiency, to disband what was then called the Rural Crime Unit, which was an excellent unit, which did an excellent job, particularly focusing on issues such as theft and rustling, poaching and those types of things. Of late, there has been some publicity that they are in some ways tackling these issues, but in an area such as ours, which is so highly agricultural, it strikes me that anybody, whether it's the police commissioner or anybody with a bit of common sense, would realise that reinstalling that unit as it was in those days with those resources would go a long way to tackling some of these problems that we have, and they are real rural problems. You know, it's very easy, I suppose, for somebody to sit in a car and check what speed a car's going, but then when it comes to the theft of, for example, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of tractors, it just seems that that as a crime is not seen as a priority. So certainly a return to that particular unit of policing, I think, would be most useful. It would be very, very beneficial again for the same area.
Thank you.
Just a general question to all the candidates: would they give a guarantee that they would live in the constituency if they got elected to the Staffordshire Moorlands? George?
Absolutely, I already live in the constituency.
Yes, I give you assurance I would live in the constituency.
Trudy?
I think it's really important. I really don't understand how you can claim to properly represent the area and its people unless you live amongst the community. I really don't. And I was born and brought up in Biddulph and lived in Leek for a number of years, and would absolutely want to be here as your Labour MP serving the community, so yes.
Okay.
I've lived here for the last 40 years at my present address. I've been a local councillor for 20 of them out there. I have no intention of moving away from there during my lifetime.
Thank you. Now, I've got John Bradshaw.
Yes, there's two issues. Firstly, it's in relation to a general public perception that there's a lack of accountability in all the political parties. That's in light of the MP's expenses, the about term with the tuition fees, the failures at Stafford Hospital and in Rotherham. My sense is growing disillusionment and anger. So my first question is to ask what each of the candidates would do to ensure greater accountability and transparency. And the second question, if they were aware that an MP or a former MP or a judge or a crime commissioner or somebody within the NHS had deliberately perverted either procedures, like in perhaps planning permission or in a judicial process or in Parliament, for example an MP, what they would be doing to ensure greater accountability in British governance.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right in terms of confidence and trust and respect must be earned. So in terms of how I want to go about the job of being your MP, it does mean that I will be open and honest about the things that I'm doing, about the running of the constituency office. And I've said all the way along that events like this are absolutely vital, not just when we're coming up to an election time, but actually being held to account by the people that I would be representing, and that's really, really important to me as a Democrat, making sure that there are regular opportunities like this, regular surgeries that people can genuinely get to and drop into and not having to make an appointment, and making sure that happens right across the constituency. Home visits if necessary, along with somebody to accompany me. It's really, really important. On the issue of whistleblowing, would I whistleblow? Yes, I would, and I have done. Within my professional life, I am a child protection officer for a college. And one of the things that I make clear with all of the people that I train and who serve me within that team is that we absolutely must make sure that propriety, in that case the child, comes first, but the same principle would apply in my work as your MP.
Yes, I think the first and perhaps most important thing we need to do is to get real people back involved in politics. I think Westminster in particular, and to a certain extent councils, have become full of people who most people can't identify with. They're not normal people in the sense that they don't seem to have had a normal life. They don't seem to have actually had to work for a living, understand that experience, and it goes through all the political parties, and I think all the political parties really do need to address that issue of diversity and getting ordinary people involved in the process again. And I don't think any of them, including my own, are particularly good at doing that at the moment, but it's something that they really do need to perhaps concentrate more of their resources on than the flashy adverts we see for them. As for whistleblowing, it's always got to be supported, because otherwise how do you expose a scandal?
Firstly, I completely understand and agree with the unhappiness with the lack of accountability. What we need to do is bring back a system whereby we can have a vote of no confidence in our MP, and when they do things that we don't like, we can decide that we want to get rid of them. That is the very nature of democracy. If we elect someone who does not properly represent us, then we have every right to get rid of them. Every single one of the leaflets I put out has my phone number on the back. It's not an office, it's not a secretary, it is my personal phone number, because I consider this campaign to be the biggest and longest job interview of my entire life. I am not here to rule over you, I am here to be your representative. That's what government is about. Would I whistleblow? Absolutely, in a second. I have done this in private places of work. I would not think twice about doing it for government, in government. Even if it was against one of my own party, I wouldn't think twice about it. What is honest is honest, and what is lies, and someone needs to stand up for it.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point of representation to it? Because I don't believe it's simply a matter of living in the constituency. I came to this area in 1980.
Yes, can I just say that we're coming to the very last two questions, and then there'll be time for questions from the floor. If we can just have the last two questions, and then we can go to some comments from the floor. Yes, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, politics is pretty morally bankrupt at the moment. It's pretty sad that the only record of MP's expenses is unredacted is now in the Daily Telegraph's offices. The parliamentary officers shredded them all under some obscure rule that we weren't told about. The Green Party view is that no individual or corporation should own more than 20% of any type of media. We've probably got 10 people that are running our media right now. And those 10 people have got very deep pockets, and they're very well connected within the political system. We're not represented, we're fed the narrative of what big politics wants us to hear, and it isn't the truth. The scandal upon scandal daily that's gathering online, because that's the only outlet for it, because the mainstream media will not touch it because they're complicit. I've been a tribunal advocate, I've been involved with whistleblowers. It's not a nice place to be.
Should government make it compulsory that councils with planning departments ensure that such departments have an agreed development plans for their area?
Thank you.
Such a plan would require the developers to follow the needs of the local plan, not cherry pick any available land for profit alone.
Question, please.
Thank you. I feel very strongly about this, and I have been appalled that the Moorlands is still lacking a local plan. We should have had one by March 2013, and yet we are still without one. And what that means is that there is a presumption in favour of development by big developers who view particularly green fields as being a very easy source of development. And we've seen that happen with Pickwood and Ladydale here in Leek, as well as elsewhere in the Moorlands. And there must be a local plan, and a Labour government will absolutely make it mandatory that there is a local plan into which all local people must have an opportunity to be consulted and to feed into that plan. It's absolutely of fundamental importance, because whilst we do need to be building more affordable homes, we have to make sure that all of you and that others across the constituency have the opportunity to feed into the development of that plan. It's really important in terms of public service provision, transport development, and really getting local input into what can and will not work for that community. So it is fundamental importance, and the Moorlands has been let down by the Tories at District Council for not having that plan.
Yeah. Completely agree with what's just been said. In fact, my party on the Staffordshire Moorlands has, for at least the last 4 years, criticised this present administration for not getting that local plan together, because that is the most important thing and best way that we can safeguard those areas which are dear to us. Without it, all that is happening, and it is happening now, developers are coming along, that's a lovely piece of area, that's very cheap for us to develop, so we'll have that. Rather than them being told that is not up for negotiation, these are the areas of land that we've put aside for development. All we ever get from this present Conservative administration is, we just need to take a bit longer over it. At the end of the day, the problem is the planning inspectors will decide where the housing is going in this area rather than ourselves, and it's absolutely pathetic from them.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, we vitally need a strategy for planning. I was speaking to an architect last week, and I said, what would really matter to you? He said, well, a plan would be good. We know where we're going now. From a Green Party perspective, the National Planning Policy Framework's got to go. It's not fit for purpose. It's been used by speculators and land barons to do what they want to do. And even at local level, if the people in the community say no, the planning application is declined, DCLG can come in and overturn it anyway and pretty much do what they want. But I guess we're getting back to people with the big pockets who've got loads of cash and things might well happen to suit them, because that's the way it is. The Green Party policy says we need to be having land value tax. That will stop land banking, stop speculative purchases, and take the heat out of the market. It will actually increase the value of brownfield land, make it more economic to develop, and make greenfield sites less attractive. We need a consultation process. I mean, there's a bit of an uproar at the moment about McDonald's potentially opening in Leek. Now we need to be talking about that, and the council needs to be talking to us, and the planning department needs to let us know what's going on, not finding out through the back door after the deal's been done.
Thank you.
Well, imagine this, we're all going to agree on this, because yes, I completely agree, we do need a local plan. We need one that, as I had stated earlier, prioritises brownfield sites. We need one that recognises the amount of population growth that happens and changing in demographics as well. We need to ensure that if growth doesn't happen though, that this doesn't open the door for hostile development companies to build houses where they're not required. I, like Trudy, was involved with the opposing the Pickwood and Ladydale site and opposing other sites outside of Leek. And I think that possibly the biggest irony of this is that if you go to certain parts of Leek, you will find vast amounts of empty houses. Why are we continuing to build houses when there are vacant properties already in this constituency that would probably more than suffice inside of a certain demographic?
Thank you, George. Now, the final question in the submitted questions is from Malcolm. And Malcolm, will you refine it down to the basic question, please?
Yes, I do have a very well-researched question. I'm very grateful that Karen Bradley will be here at the next hustings, and I'll save the full length of that question for that time.
Are you sure?
Oh yes, oh yes. But it's very simple, this one. Very, very simple, very short. Get rid of all of those bits. And that is the majority of people in this country don't trust MPs. The new poll from Mori shows that just 16% of Britons trust politicians to tell the truth. Interestingly, 22% trust journalists and estate agents. And amazingly, for all the money they made out of the recession, 31% trust bankers, even though we haven't locked any of them up. My question is very simple. Why should we trust you? Not your party, not your rhetoric, you. We're voting for you.
Right.
I'll try and keep it as simple as brief as I can. I speak from the heart. I speak the truth. It may not always be what everybody wants to hear, but if I believe in it, I will stand by it to the bitter end. And that's how I believe that politics should be. Not about where you're from, who you're related to, how much money you've got, which school you went to. It's about you and the community you represent. We've got to get politics away from representing the people that voted them in and getting politics to represent the electorate. That's everybody, that's all of us in this room, not the ones who just voted for them, it's everyone. And everyone that isn't in this room as well. If politics goes that way, we've got some hope of turning it around. If I'm going to rhetoric, I do apologise, but I really care about this, and I feel let down. If politics was so good, I wouldn't be sat here. That's how bad it is.
Thank you. I've had some watchwords for my campaign, and indeed for the way I conduct myself in life, and integrity is absolutely vitally important. You know, I touched on earlier the point about being responsible as a child protection officer, and the way in which I go about my business, both personally and professionally, absolutely rests upon trust and integrity, and making sure that other people's needs come first, and it's about serving. And I come from the Moorlands, and I'm really, really passionate about this area and want the very best for this area, and I feel cross when people keep telling me week in, week out that they feel that they've been let down in terms of both local and national representation. And I'm here quite simply because I want to make it better. I believe that I can be the very best representative that you deserve in the Moorlands, and making sure, and ultimately I have to look at myself in the mirror at the end of every day, and I want to know that I've acted responsibly, respectfully, and that I've given of my best and done my best in serving those people whose interests I want to stand up for. And I will go about my business and telling the truth and standing up for what really matters, and standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves.
Thank you. George.
Firstly, I completely agree in your absolute unhappiness at our MPs. I don't trust most of them either. There are two I quite like. Well, just get back to why you should trust me. Well, I don't jump questions. I don't spin them. I don't mince words. I try to be as honest as I humanly can, and I will always do that. Like I said, I believe in accountability, and I want you to be able to contact me. I want to be representative of you. I'm not part of the political establishment. I did not go to certain universities. I was not privately educated. I'm not rich. I'm not wealthy. I'm a working class man, and I just want things to be better for people in this constituency. I want things to be better for people in this country. I want to serve Britain and make it great again. And if you can believe my sincerity in that, then you go ahead and trust me to do it.
Thank you.
For the last 20 years I've been a local councillor. I've always had my contact details on the leaflets, which I don't just put out at election time, because that strikes most politicians. That's when they put theirs out. Mine go out all year round, year in, year out, and they have been doing for the last 20 years. I'm yet to find anybody who's levelled any particular complaint against me as an individual, morally, or from the point of view of how I operate. So I just rest upon the case that I draw up, who's tried my hardest in 20 years of local service to the local people I represent, who have seen fit for the last 20 years to re-elect me. I honestly believe that speaks volumes for itself.
Thank you very much. Now that concludes the questions to the panel and that formal part of the evening. If there are any comments that people would like, which are not necessarily questions to the candidates, if you'd indicate, and we'll hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Chair. Would the panel agree with me that one of the real growth areas in the Staffordshire Moorlands have been the rise of food banks? And isn't that a terrible indictment of the last 5 years of austerity from the coalition government?
Yeah. That's a rhetorical question. If you're not
Craig,
sure
could we ask the name of each person?
Yes, could you just tell us your name, please?
My name's Kevin Jackson.
Kevin Jackson. Yeah.
The food banks operating across the Moorlands in Leek, Biddulph and Cheadle do an outstanding job for the people that they serve and help who are in desperate circumstances. I've had the privilege to get to know some of the team in Leek and have been, have helped out there a time or two when I could. And I was out with them just the other Saturday. Most people actually are very, very supportive and helpful and really understand and are quite humbled and sometimes ashamed by the work that the food bank team are having to do. I did come across just one person who said, I don't believe in food banks, to which I had to bite my tongue because my response is, nor do I actually, and it is a national disgrace that we have to have food banks and that nearly 1 million people in our society are relying upon food banks as a direct consequence of government policy within work poverty, with delayed, delayed benefits and with sanctions for some of the most poor and vulnerable people in our society. I think the food banks do an amazing job, but it is a disgrace that we have to have them.
Okay, anyone else like to respond? Right.
Yes. Food banks are a symptom of our times. We've got the DWP that's now acting as some sort of proxy judiciary that's handing out benefit sanctions at will. In fact, there's plenty enough evidence to say that they're under pressure to get as many people off benefits as possible to massage unemployment figures. 35% of working people in this country are in poverty. That's the reality of where we're at right now. We've got people who are going to work who are poor, and that's a situation by big politics. They're not being truthful with us. They're demonising the poor, the disenfranchised, and saying that it's all their fault, and it isn't. It's the system that we've been allowed to build up around us.
Okay, anyone else want to say something?
Just quickly, this is another return to the Victorian times when our government is just simply not supporting us. I think it's a sad reflection on society that we've had to resort to food banks. I praise anyone who works in them. I think you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you very much for that, helping. The way to solve this issue is that we need more business, we need more growth, we need more employment. We need to stop taxing the poor as best as possible. We need to abolish tax on minimum wage, and we need to ensure that those in the least favourable circumstances don't pay as much council tax.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the question.
When I came to Staffordshire Moorlands, is this working?
Yeah.
It was 1980, and we had, and this is a non-political point, by the way, guys. We had an MP called David Knox, whose nickname locally was the Postman. He never took an issue. Any letters to him, he referred to government departments. He got a reply from the government departments, and he sent you a copy with a regretful note. I do not believe that was being representative. He was followed, and this is non-political, by a very good Labour MP who was a very strong constituency representative, Charlotte Atkins. She's there for 8 years. And sadly, in the last election, this constituency went back to the days of the Postman. Now, when I headed up Leek United in the fight against the Murray Financial Group takeover, we received substantial help from a strong constituency MP in Charlotte Atkins. I do not believe that if the same situation were to occur again, I would have received the same support from the current MP. And I would urge the members of this constituency, the voters of this constituency, to reflect that the Staffordshire Moorlands can only improve with the assistance and the representation of a strong MP.
That's your point. Thank you very much. Any other comments? A comment over there. Sorry. Your name, please.
Derek Chapman. Thursday agrees to organise this very good event, you say, involve many of us in voting from our own homes on various issues. Is digital democracy going to be a big step forward for all of us?
Digital democracy, yeah. George.
Now, I agree that a certain amount of pressure from campaigning has been taken off by the fact it's turned to social media nowadays. Social media and digital democracy, as you call it, is a big part. The problem with it is that it is vulnerable to people like hackers who want to get into it. So we can never resort to that fully, and you only have to look at the problems that the United States have had with digital voting machines to realise that issues can come up with this. I will always want ballots on a piece of paper and not digitally, but I respect the fact that a certain amount of campaigning and issues can come up on media, social media, before they come into the real world.
I'm a big fan of digital democracy. I myself have voted in Labour